Look how quiet this sequence is. It's one of many serene moments from arguably the most highly regarded pioneer of action cinema ever created. But when I say action cinema, what do you think of? Probably something like that. Unprecedented box office domination has propelled action to the most prevalent genre of film with widespread appeal. At the very least, it's become the most crucial to the industry due to its control over the mainstream crowd. So with being such an integral pillar to the craft, why is it now all too common for the execution of those scenes that define them the most to come across as so painfully shallow? I use the term shallow because, though difficult to deny that these testosterone-fueled experiences aren't that of a stimulating one, they just feel to have been accomplished through the sacrifice of any emotional sincerity. They're designed to titillate, and although today's template to achieve this is through a kind of sensory overload, wouldn't scenes that display the pinnacle of physicality work better if they also conveyed an emotional intensity to match this? Action and emotion need not be separated by a chasm as they so often are, and this is where the greatness of Seven Samurai lies. Now when I say emotion, I'm not exclusively referring to how the internal conflicts of characters can be displayed, more so ways to evoke genuine drama through the employed filmmaking techniques that create action, and Seven Samurai's blending of the two is still as seamless today as it was over 60 years ago. Spoilers ahead. If there's a crucial lesson in what Kurosawa administers to the action in Seven Samurai, it's that death carries significance. Let's see how the first encounter with death in this movie is handled. What do we see? Well, what we don't see is the actual killing of the kidnapper. The core event of the sequence is obscured, the scenery hides the action, and instead Kurosawa focuses on the lingering death, filmed entirely in slow motion. And this is our first major differentiation. Kurosawa focuses less on the action and more on the consequence of the action. Throughout most of the set pieces, Kurosawa amplifies the death of each antagonist by having the camera show the demise of every single bandit. How this typically works is that we'll begin with a shot that shows the samurai attacking, but then, very importantly, cut to the following shot which shows where the bandit will fall before they actually do. So not only do we see the full action, but also the full consequence, as opposed to cutting too soon and interrupting either. And it's in the moments that show repercussions where most of the drama lies. Without them, we aren't being confronted with the reality of the situation, instead just presented with a glamorized version of the violence. This all may sound obvious, but why this is relevant is because the majority of modern action films almost fetishize the way they shoot the protagonists. Look how often the camera is locked onto the main characters in order to capture every flourishing move they perform. They're almost never out of frame, and we hardly get to see the results of what they're doing. Kurosawa, on the other hand, makes a point of showing the audience the effects of our characters' heroism, and so we can gauge the enormity of their task. But when we don't see this, we can never really feel the weight of what's actually being done. See how hard it is to tell if our characters are actually succeeding? If the camera's preoccupation is with flair rather than emotional depth, the danger becomes less significant, because do you really feel that our protagonists are threatened by a menace we can hardly even see? In Seven Samurai, every encounter feels monumental, because every death is displayed clearly and recognised as a culmination of our characters' struggles. Each death is a minor victory, and Seven Samurai employs another technique to exemplify this notion. What aggravates me most with modern action is when I don't actually know what's going on. I mean this in the manner of, during these colossal fights, where do our characters need to get to? How many people are standing in their way? The best way I can explain this is that the audience can't tell what our characters' short-term objectives are, whereas in Seven Samurai, we know this. Not only do we get to see how many bandits attack on every assault, we know exactly how many are to be defeated overall. You can even count every kill over the course of the movie. To me, this works far better than a giant horde with no discernible end. I think this situational awareness of Kurosawa is what's missing from modern action cinema. Spend less time gawking at the hero and give more clarity to their circumstances. And to truly invest the audience, Kurosawa maps his battle settings by establishing the geography of the area. A fight can take place anywhere, but try making the layout vital to the scene. Seven Samurai takes the time to teach the audience the complete structure of the village in which all the fighting is going to take place. We know its entry points, its weak spots. By the final battle, we have a comprehension of the area, so when something like this happens, we understand the severity of the situation. Kurosawa has such a fantastic way of relaying both the spatial and situational information to the audience that every moment of action communicates a sense of urgency. And speaking of action, let's discuss that first action scene again, which I think is a perfect summary of Kurosawa's approach. Slow motion happens to now be a staple of the action genre, yet modern techniques are almost diametrically opposed with Kurosawa's methods. The modern implementation of slow motion is utilised to depict great strength, in short, again, to put emphasis on the action. When filming in slow motion, whatever appears on screen is intensified. Movements are elongated and given the illusion of carrying more power. But whenever a slow motion scene occurs, just ask yourself, what's the reasoning behind this? Because typically, it's a purely surface level implementation. Look how cool these characters look. Or even worse, the technique can be abused to the point where all of its dramatic flair is lost. Kurosawa puts a greater emphasis on the consequence, knowing this is where the emotion lies, and he uses the visual intensity of slow motion to enhance it. So instead of an audience awestruck at an action that seems to carry no consequence, he allows us plenty of time to see the weight that death carries and magnifies the emotions we feel during it. When most use these techniques for style, Kurosawa uses them for substance. So let's discuss the construction of the battle scenes and how they're able to convey emotion. First of all, I think the most distinctive aspect of Seven Samurai set pieces is that Kurosawa recognises that even in the film's most hectic moments, shots still require focus. The final battle of Seven Samurai is bookended by these two shots of a flag blowing in the wind. From the first shot of the flag to the last, there are exactly 101 cuts in just under 9 minutes. This includes the preparation, the battle, and the aftermath. Now compared to today's cinema, this little amount of cutting, especially for the climactic scene, is unheard of. Yet it displays an inherently different filmmaking mindset. Amidst all the mayhem that Kurosawa was able to employ, his shots still maintain focus, and the length of these shots has a lot to do with this. To quote the man, each fragment of imagery is a piece of art in itself. Instead of editing to combine multiple shots together, Kurosawa typically composes his images so that the subjective focus shifts in a single shot. As much of the frame is utilised as possible in a single motion. Rather than chopping up what could have been one shot into a bunch of little ones, the constant switching of focus gives the movie a much more dynamic feel. It feels like a real battle is taking place. Things are happening outside of what the character is experiencing, things out of their control. What's central to Kurosawa's methods is that there's still emotion conveyed in every shot, so it makes sense not to be intrusive and use cutting to interrupt this. Comparatively in these scenes, there's hardly enough time to relay any emotional information in a single shot. Maybe if they just cut some of the cutting, the emotions in each frame would have time to reveal themselves. This isn't to say that the use of fast cutting is innately bad. Seven Samurai even uses it for a brief moment, but when Kurosawa edits like this, he cuts on movement to give seamless continuity. Helped by his multi-camera setups, most of the multiple angles come from a single take, meaning every shot was all part of one motion, so even in the faster editing, there's still a greater degree of focus to what's occurring on screen. Whereas in many examples we see today, it's a combination of multiple takes, leading to very jarring continuity. Originally, the multi-camera setup was used as it gave actors more natural ways of emoting. They weren't just acting to one camera, because they didn't know which camera was a close-up of their face, so they used their entire body to act. But what this setup meant was that it was able to take advantage of telephoto lenses. The way telephoto lenses work is that they magnify what's in the image, and Kurosawa did something unconventional for the time. Instead of tracking with a wide lens, he would pan with a telephoto lens. The difference was that it gave the illusion that things moved faster. So instead of using a wide lens to film the samurai travelling, Kurosawa did this. Wider lenses work better to give a sense of space and openness during action, but Kurosawa would use telephoto lenses from afar so that the action moved quicker inside the frame. In the final battle, the rain crashes in front of us. People move in and out of the camera's vision rapidly, which still moves in between subjects on individual shots. There's so much dynamic movement going on because of the motion of the camera that you can't help but feel its intensity. To me, Seven Samurai is still the most forward-thinking piece of cinema ever created, because what it did for the way action is photographed can still be seen today, and when it isn't seen, it probably should be. The key of its influence lies in a refined understanding of space and situation. How do you employ emotion into action? Show that there is a reality to the violence your characters commit. Make the audience aware of the space around the characters and clarify their objectives within that space. And finally, film it all in a way that makes things visually exciting but not overly cluttered. But if your reaction to what saturates conventional cinemas is, it's just a dumb action film, well, yeah, but it doesn't have to be.